After Sunday's video where we finally pulled out both Detroit diesel 12V71s out of our engine room, the questions started rolling in, and they were good ones. In this episode of Your Questions Answered, we're covering what happened to those massive mufflers, how we moved the Detroits once they were out, and the question of the week that really got us thinking. Thank you to everyone who took the time to comment. We read every one of them, and your questions help shape these videos, so keep them coming.
So what'd you guys think? Engines are out, got pretty sketchy at times, but we managed to pull it off. I know a lot of you guys are probably really happy to be getting into the nitty-gritty of everything now, and it should continue on for the next few weeks, but let's get to some questions from this week. All right, so the first question today is from Jet Driver. I know the project is actually complete, but did you consider installing some sort of permanent railway in the engine room to allow you to more easily move an engine or lift heavy objects in the future? I did actually think about that, and the main reason why I was thinking about that is, say for example, I wanted to do a rear main seal in the future on the engines. That would give me the ability to lift the engine, slide it forward away from the transmission. Easier. Didn't actually end up doing it. The mufflers kind of make that a little difficult because they take up that space. So we didn't do that. However, might be something I might look into again in the future. Just going to take a break from the questions for a moment and let you guys know that our new website launches on Saturday. So go by if you have a moment, check it out, and let us know what you think. This question is from Dot. That's literally the name is period. Can you sell the Detroits? If so, what would they be worth? Did go into this in the past. We were not able to sell the Detroits. I've tried everything, parting them out, selling them complete. We had no luck with it. I had assumed that they would probably be worth about at least $5,000 to $8,000 a piece. Yeah, nah, there was no interest in them. Lots of people popping up. You guys didn't scrap those. Well, yeah, we did. Not because we wanted to, because that was the only option that we had at the time. I actually lost my commercial space, so I didn't have anywhere to keep them anymore, and I had been trying to sell them for about 6 months to no avail. So yeah, they were worth nothing in the end. Andy Guest 6543 asked, did you manage to sell the engines, and how did you move them once the crane had left? As you can see in that last question, we were not able to sell them. As far as moving them, fortunately, Steveston Boatyard has a pretty massive forklift, and what ended up happening is those two engines went onto a gigantic pallet, and they were able to store them for us temporarily because we were leaving right after the shipyard to go on a trip, and we needed some place to put the engines temporarily. Funny enough, when we actually got these engines back to Victoria later, we had to unload them off of the trailer that we had got to bring them over, and didn't exactly have a really big forklift available to us. So once again, we did some sketchy shit, and we had the forklift there, and we had two guys hanging off the back of the forklift, and we were trying to lift on a hill to keep the weight backwards, just to keep the forklift from tipping over forward. So you guys have probably all seen forklift videos of bad things happening. We were probably pretty close to that. We got a question here from E.H. Snills. Probably not saying that right, not as you intended anyway. Ever seen bus grease monkey? Now, this is something that I've gotten a lot of. I did actually have to look. I didn't know of bus grease monkey. Apparently he specializes in Detroit engines, and he does a lot of work with them in the bus field and whatnot. A lot of people saying that I could have contacted him to get rid of the engines. Unfortunately, day late, dollar short, I did not even know about him before the engines were gotten rid of. So, not an option now, but wish I had known that then. So, Kim Beatty asked, do you have any worries of asbestos in the engine room? There is asbestos in the engine room. Fortunately, not much left in there now, but the lagging around the exhaust as well as around the mufflers is asbestos. Fortunately, they were all coated, so it wasn't shedding anything. And when we put the mufflers back in again, we did recoat the mufflers. So asbestos is only an issue if it gets loose. If you start getting a lot of particulate flying around, as long as it's encapsulated somehow, it's not an issue. So fortunately, not an issue for us, at least not much of an issue, and a lot of it wasn't going back in again anyway. This isn't so much of a question as a curiosity, I suppose. Dennis 5043 After watching your videos for quite a while, I can't help but think that all the work, time, energy, and money you put into repairs and upgrades, you probably could have bought a new boat. I'm not sure if anybody has priced out any new 78-foot boats these days, but I mean, you're in the millions, well into the millions for a new boat. Now, we certainly could have probably found a different boat or maybe one that was in better shape, but once again, you're hundreds of $1,000s more than what we paid for this one, so you're not really any further ahead. And you're going to end up doing a lot of the same upgrades on that boat if you get it. You know, we're doing a lot of updates to the electrical, updates to the engines. All the boats in those ranges are still going to have that same equipment on board. Anything that we would have found that had reasonable pricing still would have been something, as someone pointed out, 30 years old or so. Still going to have Detroit diesels in it, still going to have old electrics in it, likely, if you're paying that little for it. So I would say no. I don't think there would have been a benefit in anything. And honestly, we enjoy it. So what else would I have done with my time? Just to give you guys a comparison, we've got a boat over here right next to us on a mooring. It's a Pioneer. Really nice boat, fiberglass, right around the 70-foot mark. That boat is currently on the market, and I think it's going for about 700,000 Canadian. And just to clarify, we paid 200,000 Canadian for this boat. Now, Pioneer, like I said, it's a very nice boat. It's got a lot of really good features in it, but everything is very old and on board. All your electrical is fairly old. All of the inside, the tanks, everything, just it needs work as well. So we paid 200,000 Canadian for Tongaroa, and we've probably put 200,000 to 300,000 into her, and we've got lots of new equipment on board. There's a lot of systems that no longer need upgrading or updating. It just, for us, monetarily, it makes more sense. Question from Happily Retired. Glad to hear you're happily retired. Looking forward to that day. I'm curious why water cooling of the exhaust before the turbo is used. I know in automotive applications you want to retain as much exhaust heat as possible before the turbo. So different applications. Obviously, automotive, you're driving from point A to point B, you're constantly in and out of the throttle, you want turbo response. Not so much of an issue on a boat. Typically, we get pointed in one direction, the throttles get set to one spot, and we're there for a really long time. So we don't need the quick response of what you need in an automotive application. So what they've done instead is they favored safety in the engine room, because a lot of times you're going to be moving around these engines when you're underway. So you've got burn hazards, you got excess heat into the engine room, which is never a good idea. So they basically just water cool everything just to keep it nice and cool where there's no danger of having it in the engine room. RVing since 2016 asked, when searching for engines, did you look at motorhome engines? Not in particularly, no, but the searches that I was doing, say eBay and whatnot, they would have kind of been in those searches anyway. There are similar engines anyhow, so it likely would have been encompassed in that, but not specifically, no, we didn't look into the RV engines. So Redgrave asked, I know you said you could not find a solution for the mufflers at the time and that new ones were cost prohibitive. But do you have future plans? Is there an ideal commercial solution? Also, there must be something used in the boatyard somewhere. Those common rail ISBs are like sewing machines compared to the DDs. There is for sure something commercial we could use. That's a great question. I had looked into a few. There's a couple of companies that make like a spiral wound muffler, so the exhaust comes into the center and has to work its way around the outside and then exits sideways. And they make them from applications like this to hospital applications where they're noise critical, so they really dumb down the noise. Once again, they were just really expensive, and that might be something that we'll go into later, but for the time being, we're using the stock mufflers that we had, and they so far seem to be working pretty well. Wood welder asked, those mufflers are scrap? ? I see you're a TIG welder? ? Not comfortable with the stick? ? Didn't want sparks dripping in the bilge. I noticed on the capstan you used the TIG to put a bow in the stainless steel. Yeah, I mean, I go with what I know. I've got a fair bit of experience MIG welding, and I've got lots of years on the TIG, so I'm I'm comfortable with it. Next to no experience stick welding. I haven't used it much, but what I find, and it's similar to the MIG welding, is it's stressful. You got sparks flying everywhere. And especially in the engine room, that under those engines, there's nasty, oily, gross everything. And having sparks flying around in there, just not an ideal situation. And if you look back in earlier videos, I was doing some welding on the outside of the hull and actually lit the bilge on fire. Fortunately, my son was there on fire watch.
Check out fire, and the pin for the fire extinguisher was bent.
Oh, look at all the smoke in there.
Yeah.
So what caused the fire, Blaine?
Yeah, we're hopping out. That's why I had him in there.
What caused the fire?
Oh, it's just I'm welding right by in the bilge area. So it just got hot enough to light off a little bit of something in the bilge.
You okay? Did you burn yourself?
No, pulling the pin.
Pull the pin out.
I bent the entire pin out, trying to pull it out.
Holy powder!
Yeah.
Okay, we have a little bit of fire extinguisher powder in here.
That's why I didn't want you to do that, Izzy.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Oh, that's going to be fun to clean out. And the aftermath of the slight bilge fire. This is all the powder that's left down in the bilge. I'll have to get that out because I'm pretty sure that's a bit caustic for aluminum. So I'm going to vacuum that out right now. But that'll just give you an idea. If you got sparks flying around in the engine room, there's a good chance something is going to catch on fire. So I like to keep that to a bare minimum. All right, so we're here to the question of the day, and this is an interesting one because it's one of those questions that kind of gets you thinking about possibilities that you have not had. Handy Guest 6543 asked, do you ever wish you could swap your boat for a much more modern, i.e. under 5-year-old boat, if money wasn't involved? Or do you prefer the uniqueness and challenges and bespoke nature of what you have? That is a really, really difficult question. And quite honestly, I think that even if we did have the kind of money, I don't know that we would have gone to a new boat. I find that a lot of these old classic boats, they just have a soul that you can't get with a newer boat. They have personality. And we enjoy the work. We really, really do love doing this stuff. And it gives us something unique to us. And it gives us a completely open slate to do whatever we want with it. So while I can't say with certainty what we would have done if we had money as no object, I can say that we're happy with what we've got here. And chances are we probably would have gone with maybe something different, but still not something new if we had the money. On the flip side of that, if we had that kind of money and we had Tongaroa, oh, the dreams I would fulfill. We would have so many cool things on board. One of my top would love to have is pod drives. And I'm not talking like the Zeus drives. I'm talking about proper like ship azimuth drives. So if you guys haven't seen them, they're pretty amazing. They're basically, there's nothing in the boat for drive. Everything is mounted externally. So you've got an electric motor in the hub around the propeller. So there's no transmissions. There's no gearing through the drive. And these drives rotate 360 degrees. So when you're coming into dock, you don't need bow thrusters, you don't need stern thrusters. You can walk these things sideways. Depending on the drives you get, there's other ones, Voith Schneiders are really cool as well. They make a really neat electric setup these days. And they're basically like spinning fins underneath the boat. And they react so quickly to direction changes that you don't need stabilizers on the boat either. These things, if you're driving straight, they can alter their fin directions and they can act as a stabilizer to the boat as well as drive it forward, as well as move it around without bow thrusters or stern thrusters. So there are a lot of options that would be super awesome to be able to play with, provided we had the money. But for now, they're what I spend my evenings looking at and dreaming about on the internet. And that's it for the question and answer this week. Stay tuned for Sunday. We've got a new video coming out where we're getting down and dirty in the engine room.
If you missed the video these questions came from, check out we removed 2 5,000-pound Detroit diesels from our 78-foot yacht. It was a big week in the engine room.